The dog did not bark. Dawn crept in slowly, like a thief afraid to be caught. Pale light spilled over the shattered remains of the village, revealing crooked houses with scala straws, walls scorched black by fire, windows staring blindly at the road. Smoke still lingered in the air, heavy and bitter, stinging the eyes and throat. The silence was unnatural, no birds, no wind, not even the creak of loose boards. Only the distant rumble of artillery reminded the world that the war had not moved on without them. Sergeant Artyom Morozov stood at the edge of the road, boots sunk slightly into damp earth. He did not move. Years at the front had taught him that stillness could be the difference between life and death. His fingers tightened around the strap of his rifle, knuckles white beneath the grime. Every instinct screamed that the road ahead was wrong. At his side, Джульбарс lowered his head and sniffed the ground. The dog's movements were slow, deliberate, almost cautious. His ears twitched at sounds no human could hear. His dark fur was dusted with ash, and a thin scar ran along his muzzle, a souvenir from a bombing raid months earlier. Artyom watched him closely, reading every shift of muscle, every pause in breathing. This was their language now, built without words. Behind them, the battalion waited. Men crouched behind ruined stone walls and overturned carts, rifles clutched tightly, faces tense and hollow with exhaustion. Some stared at the dog as if their lives already belonged to him. Others avoided looking at all, afraid to trust hope. Boots scraped softly against rubble. Someone muttered a prayer under his breath. Джульбарс stopped. His body went rigid. One paw hovered above the ground. Slowly, carefully, he sat. Artyom's heart slammed against his ribs. He raised his fist without turning around. The signal passed down the line instantly. Movement ceased, whispers died. Even breathing seemed too loud. Artyom stepped forward, each motion controlled, every nerve screaming. He knelt beside the dog and studied the ground. To the naked eye, it was nothing but mud, scattered stones, a crushed tin cup half buried near the road. Death was patent. Death hit well. Artyom reached into his pouch, pulling out a small wooden marker. He pushed it into the earth, just beside where Джульбарс sat. 1 mine. How many more waited beneath the road? 10, 20, enough to tear the battalion apart in seconds. The dog's nose twitched again. He stood, took 2 steps, 10 froze once more. Another marker, 10 another. A bit of sweat slid down Artyom's temple despite the cold morning air. He could feel ice burning into his back, feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on his shoulders. One mistake, one misunderstood signal, and the road would erupt in fire. Then, from the forest ahead, comes the sharp, unmistakable crack of a rifle shot. The bullet struck the dirt less than a meter away. The silence shattered. Down, someone shouted from behind, the word tearing through the fragile calm. The world exploded into motion. Rifle fire erupted from the tree line, sharp and relentless, the flashes briefly illuminating the dark woods of the forest. Bullets tore through the air, snapping past Artyom's ears and kicking up fountains of dirt along the road. A cart wheel splintered. Stone chips burst from a ruined wall. Men dove for cover wherever they could, into shell craters, behind fallen beams, against the earth itself. Artyom dropped to 1 kne but did not retreat. Джульбарс stood frozen beside him, muscles scaled tight, eyes locked forward. Training screamed at the dog to run, to obey the chaos of gunfire, but another instinct held him in place. Artyom's hand found the thick fur at his neck, fingers digging in just enough to ground them both. "If you both were finished," Artyom muttered through clenched teeth, more to himself than to the dog. Another shot rang out. Somewhere behind them, a man cried out in pain, the sound cut short by a second burst of fire. Artyom did not look back. He couldn't. The road beneath them was still a web of hidden death. One panicked movement, one backward step, and the miners would finish what the bullets began. He flattened himself against the ground and crawled forward, inch by inch. The smell of damp soil mixed with cardite filled his lungs. His hands trembled as he brushed dirt away from the faint outline of metal, just enough to confirm what he already knew. A pressure mine, old, but reliable, lethal, the feeling intensified. Bullets chived into the road ahead, so close Artyom felt the air move. He worked anyway, sweat dripping from his chin onto the mine casing. With slow, precise movements, he cut the wire. For a long, unbearable second, nothing happened. Then the tension eased slightly in his chest. One down, Τζульбарс shifted, nose pulling him forward again, urgently now. He whinnied softly, a sound barely audible beneath the gunfire, and stopped near the edge of the road where grasses met churned mud. Artyom followed, his body screaming in protest. Another mine, 10 another. The enemy had turned the road into a trap, counting on panic to do the rest. A bullet struck the ground between Artyom and the dog, spraying mud across Джульбарс's face. The dog did not flinch. Artyom looked at him, really looked, and felt a surge of something close to awe. Amid fire, noise, and death, the animal waited for his command, trusting him completely. The feeling from the forest faltered, then shifted closer. The enemy was advancing. Artyom knew they were running out of time. He leaned close to the dog's ear, his voice barely more than broad. Forward, he whispered. Find them all. For a split second, Джульбарс hesitated. Then he moved, low to the ground, fast and focused. He darted ahead along the road's edge, weaving through smoke and flying dirt. Artyom watched, heart in his throat, as the dog vanished toward the tree line, alone, unarmed, carrying the fate of the battalion with him. The gunfire followed him. Artyom pushed himself up despite the danger, eyes fixed ahead, waiting for the sign that would tell him whether he would live or die on this road. Джульбарс ran straight into the chaos. The forest swallowed him almost at once, trunks and smoke closing around his lean body. Gunfire chased him, bullets cracking against bark, shredding leaves overhead. The enemy had spotted him now. Shouts echoed between the trees, sharp and panicked, orders overlapping in a language Artyom couldn't make out. They were confused. They hadn't expected this. Artyom forced himself to breathe. Every instinct told him to run after the dog, to drag him back, to shield him from the storm of flood. But he stayed where he was, frozen on the minute road, eyes burning as he strained to see through the haze. Trust was all he had left. Then, an explosion. Not close. Deeper in the forest. The blast rolled outward, shaking the ground beneath Artyom's chest. Birds burst from the treetops in a black cloud. A second explosion followed almost immediately, then a third. The enemy's gunfire broke into frantic, yelling bursts. Someone screamed. Another voice shouted in terror. They're hitting their own mines. A soldier whispered behind him, disbelief cutting through fear. The road trembled again as a larger detonation tore through the tree line. A column of dirt and fire rose above the trees, followed by silence, thick, stunned silence. Artyom pushed himself to his knees, scanning desperately. Smoke drifted lazily now, as if the forest itself was catching its breath. Seconds stretched unbearably long. Джульбарс, Artyom said under his breath. Movement. A dark shape staggered out of the smoke. The dog emerged slowly, limping, one side of his body smeared with blood and ash. His ears were torn, his breathing ragged, but his eyes were still locked on Artyom. Still focused, still alive. He took a few more steps, then collapsed onto the road's edge. Artyom didn't think. He moved. He followed the path the dog had cleared, stepping only where he had seen Джульбарс step before. Each footfall felt like a gamble with fate. Bullets no longer flew, only distant echoes remained. When Artyom reached him, he dropped to his knees and gathered the dog's head into his hands. Easy, easy, he whispered, his voice breaking. You did it. You hear you did it. Джульбарс's tail thumped weakly against the dirt. Behind them, officers shouted orders. Engineers rushed forward, confirming what Artyom already knew, the mines were neutralized, the ambush broken. The road was open. Medics ran past, carrying the wounded, their boots splashing through mud and blood. The battalion began to move, cautious at first, ten fast, like a river released from a dam. Artyom stayed kneeling in the dirt. A medic slid beside him, quickly examining the dog. He's alive, the man said. Barely, but alive. Relief hit Artyom so hard he had to bow his head. His hands were shaking now, the fear finally catching up with him. He pressed his forehead briefly against Джульбарс's, airing the blood, the dirt, everything. You stayed, he murmured. Good boy, you stayed. As they carried Джульбарс away on a makeshift stretcher, Artyom rose and looked down the road, the same road that had almost become their grave. Smoke tinted, morning light broke through fully now, cold and unforgiving, illuminating the path forward. The war would not end today. But because of one wounded dog and the trust between them, dozens of men would live to see another dawn.